let's begin. The fallout from the elections. We had two elections at the weekend, one for the office of president and the other for the National Assembly. But let me get your overall view first before we start talking about the nitty-gritties of them all. Let's get your overall perspectives. Let me start with you, Mr. Sawa.
Like my brother has just opined, thank God thank God we're where we are. Thank God the results have been announced. I would that they have been announced much earlier. The reasons being quite simple. I would have expected a significant improvement over the 2015 processes. And what I saw for me was actually far from an improvement in that regard. However, what was encouraging for me, particularly where my personal experience from where I voted, was the voter interest. The turnout was significant, very significant where I came out. That's why I was actually shocked with the figures subsequently when I saw that this is in fact the lowest turnout. I struggle to reconcile it, but you see, I can't judge that simply based on my
polling unit.
It was massive, the turnout there. And I was impressed by the jocular nature Nigerians were handling the entire exercise. There seemed to be a level of maturity, particularly at my polling unit, where you would notice it was friendly banter. It was friendly banter. It did not appear like a do or die situation. It was simply, I remember, it was simply a question of, okay, let's each and every one exercise their civil responsibility and right, and let the numbers decide. That basically is what we saw, and that process has brought us to where we find ourselves today.
Let me get to you, Mr. Eshua. You were here on Saturday, even though you couldn't come on air, but you had to run along so you would vote. But let's get your perspective from what you saw. I believe you also sort of observed, you saw things firsthand, you saw things on the ground, and then from reports you've gotten as well, and from what you've seen since, official coalitions began, what's been your impression so far?
So far,
I say so far because the elections are not over.
Yes. The processes didn't actually meet my expectations. If you ask me, the processes didn't seem to be an improvement from what we had in 2015. But only thing I observed that really made me feel, wow, it's like we really had gotten it a bit better, is that the masses' commitment to the process. That's one part of it. You see where people told themselves, no, you cannot snatch ballot boxes because they are meant for all of us. And then you realize that there was a lot of tolerance. There was a lot of tolerance. The division that we hear didn't really appear much when the people were voting. Even when they were talking on the lines, you could have one person voting the other party in front of the other person who is voting the next party behind. They were all still gisting. They were all still handling themselves together. That division didn't seem to be very clear. That suggests to me that we are not as divided as our politics suggests. Another thing I like to take home is where I observed here within Abuja, I realized that our military have really improved. Yeah, they were on the roads. I saw them. I met about 12 checkpoints before I got to Papi. Then I came back here. I realized that the young men were very courteous. The language they used on us while they were on the roads, hello sir, may we know you, can we see your boots, and please, and thank you. I saw that we had moved. I don't know of other areas, but this is where I observe. I saw that we had this cordial, civil, from people we expect to be military persons, trying to find themselves in a civil opportunity, working like civil people. It was to me a wonderful one. But if you are asking about the improvement of the system, like I said earlier, I don't think the system really improved because the numbers didn't tell us much. Last election, we had a little below 30 million persons voting, and with the INEC revelations that over 60 million persons got voters card, and you expected that between 2015 to 2019, more of our young children would have gotten to the age of the voting age. You expected more. We saw people, the crowd were everywhere, but unfortunately, especially Abuja, I didn't see that in the results.
So let me get you correctly now. What are you saying that the people you saw doesn't reflect on the numbers?
The numbers I heard. Now I'll tell you why. I didn't vote.
Oh, you didn't vote?
I didn't vote eventually. I'll tell you why. I went to where I was supposed to vote. I realized that they had polling units 004A in 4 different places.
Wow.
Each of them was like 1 kilometer apart. I didn't understand why. I went to 3 and I was told to go to the next one. That one was even worse. That one was about 2 kilometers away. And I was like, this is polling unit 004. It's supposed to be within the estate where I registered. I had gone through the 3 areas in the estate. My name was nowhere to be found in the register. I was asked to leave the place and go to Kurudu Primary School. That there's another 004 there. And I said, it didn't make sense to me. Because if you are given a polling unit and they should, for any reason you need to split the polling unit, it should be far apart. For you to have a polling unit, same number, same name, being like 2 kilometers away, to me, I felt that perhaps would have accounted for why most people did not vote. Because I wasn't the only one. I had people who were walking all around trying to look for where they were going to vote. So to me, that was a minus, if you want me to ask.
All right, let's get to Dr. Casmir now. As it is, a lot of persons, including the guests we've also had in the studio this morning, they've talked about the fact that the elections for this year failed to, at least match up with what we had in 2015. If you agree with this assertion, why do you think this is?
Now, by now, most Nigerians who are inclined to following up events via the conventional media would have been abreast of the observers report, local and international observers report. Of course, this exercise, the very concluded segment, fell very short of the standards set in 2015 in all ramification, in every ramification. Now, when you look at it, that in 2015, we invested a whooping sum of 100 billion plus on ICT, on technology. And this year, we also topped that investment with about 20 billion worth of investment on ICT. And towards the collection of results, Nigerians were told that INEC website has been shut down. How do we reconcile that huge investment? And how do we make progress after such investment and we don't get commensurate result, outcome on that investment? That it's worrisome. In 2015, there was element, even though the card reader challenge was there, of course it was expected. That was the first full-scale deployment of that technology in Nigeria with our peculiarities. And so we're supposed to have drawn lessons from that experience to block off all such shortcomings as we had with the card reader in 2019. Listeners will be wondering why I'm harping on the card reader. You see, when you conduct an election, even if no life is lost, it is very free, it is very fair. The question you must ask yourself is just 2. In one question, 2 answers. What is this? What is the rating of this election? Is it credible? Is it acceptable? Those are the answers you get. Is this election now, concluded as it were, credible? It's still a lot of questions. Is it acceptable? Of course, it is questionable also. Why? Because we have not included benchmarks. We have not included infrastructures that have capacity, that is robust enough to eliminate bias. What will make election questionable and lacking in credibility or acceptance is element of bias. in this concluded exercise, have we injected bias enormously? The answer is yes, because the experiences vary from north to the south. In fact, if you look at the collated result and you compare places we considered peaceful as a nation and the places we consider were under the siege or threat of insurgents, we had more election participation in the places under threat than in the places that are peaceful.
Very strange.
The bias is enormous, and these are what we must begin to interrogate as a people.
But the question I'm asking is, obviously you don't think we have matched up to the standard of 2015. Why do you think that has been the case?
It's you see, I have just subscribed to an opinion as canvassed by our observers who were there on the trenches and had written their report. And what gave me the impetus to buy into that opinion is also the shades, the various shades of conventional media reportage of what transpired across our landscape. So the truth is this: participation far below what we had in 2015. Violence. I put it as a challenge to all our security forces. Let them come clean and tell Nigerians how many lives were lost as a result of this election. They do not have such data, and that's a problem. The problem of this country is our inability to develop robust data and to deploy same for social and infrastructural development and activity. That's also why we're having issues with our elections.
Interesting perspectives coming from the gentleman this morning. This is Talk Nigeria on Greetings 105.7, and we're looking at the fallouts from the first half, I would say, of the 2019 general elections. We've had two sets, the presidential and the National Assembly elections, and next week we will have two sets as well for the governorship and also for the houses of assembly. Now let me get to you now, Mr. Sawa. As it is at this point in time, following the elections in 2015, there was something I thought it did amongst Nigerians, which I felt contributed to the massive interest we had this year. I don't know, maybe it had to do with the fact that an incumbent was voted out, but it sort of aroused the interest of a lot of Nigerians, and a lot of them wanted to get more involved. And it seemed like they actually tried to get more involved this time. But following the declaration of results, I've received a plethora of messages. I've read a plethora of, comments on social media. A lot of persons have told me personally that they're not going to vote again because they feel their votes have not counted. What do you think this is?
That's actually a very, very precarious position for us to find ourselves in. And the reason is Nigeria has managed to navigate treacherous waters. Even during the years of the Arab Spring, for example, when things were beginning to heat up everywhere and populism was and people power was the mantra. Nigeria somehow has been able to navigate these treacherous waters for the simple reason that if you would compare Nigeria to most of the societies that suffered direct effects of the Arab Spring, particularly in Africa, that's Egypt, Tunisia, Nigeria is not as closed a society as these. The ratings then, and our ratings even now, are concerning freedom of political expression are significantly higher than there. And these were the ratings before these elections. Now, every electoral process is supposed to reinforce the confidence of the electorate in the process. And when that confidence is reinforced, you will find more coming out subsequently, because they realize that my voice can be heard, my vote matters. The danger we have is when people resign themselves and begin to have a fatalistic mindset, where it appears like all of my efforts don't matter because ultimately what will be will be. That portends a lot of danger for our society. Dangers that we cannot even begin to imagine. When you consider the size of our youth population, I like quoting the Ogden Nash. There's a poem by Ogden Nash where he speaks about the danger of, is it Ogden? No, sorry, Ogden Nash. I'm not sure if it's Ogden Nash. It's a black poet, a black American poet, and he speaks concerning the dangers of a dream that has been delayed. What happens, he says, to a dream, like that has been in any way held back or delayed? Does it crust over like a raisin in the sun? Does it run out like a syrupy sweet? What happens? Ultimately, it says, or does it ultimately explode? Or does it ultimately explode? And these are very germane questions we need to ask ourselves. We must avoid a situation where the teeming population of young people get the feeling that their votes do not matter. Having said this, I would want to look at this from if we look at the demographics of these elections. We've seen all kinds of, and I will say this on all sides of the divide, we've seen all kinds of electoral malpractice, with the papers and all of that. And that actually speaks volumes to, and the only reason one would resort to that is because the belief is that the other party is doing the same, and it just creates a bigger problem. It creates a much bigger problem. The worry that I have for our society is where does it lead us? When I see some of the figures, and I struggle with the logic behind some of the figures. Like I say, when I look at the figures in Borno and Yobe, and I compare them with those in Akwa Ibom, and I look at the numbers, it's difficult for me to, how can you have similar numbers? You have one location that is a tourist delight, and then you have another that, and I'm saying this with every sense of responsibility. I am from the Northeast. Borno is home. But you have the other location that suffers severe security challenges. And then you have the same numbers coming out, It is a challenge because thinking Nigerians ask questions, and it could lead to a sense of despair and so ultimately despondency. And that is ultimately usually what precipitates. We are looking towards a society where we all pull ourselves together. I spoke just earlier about the sense of conviviality at the polling units. People from both sides. This is it's like a friendly contest. But when the results appear, and especially when the circumstances around the release, because the process matters, when the circumstances around the release leaves some very grudgingly accepting defeat, not good-naturedly. You understand? And that is what you can see as a significant division between 2015 and 2019. You understand? We need to look at that process. We can't pretend that it's all perfect and it should go away. We need to look at that process. We need to improve on that process. There is time to do so. You understand? We need to improve on that process, and we need to make it. The simple issue is they say justice must not just be done, but must be seen to be done. We need to improve the confidence of Nigerians. We cannot afford voter apathy in a country as large as ours, with as teeming a population of youth as ours.
Now, let me get to you, Mr. Eshua. As it is at this point, when you take a look at the dynamics and everything that has happened, I'm still on the issue of people saying they're not going to vote again. I got a message yesterday while on the show. Somebody said in the polling unit where he voted, according to what he said he's an observer, in the polling unit where he voted and in the ward, the entire ward where his polling unit was located, that he observed, he said a particular party won that ward and his polling unit. And this was in Kogi State. But he said when, from the official results he saw, he was shocked that the party that was declared winner in that ward and in that polling unit lost in the official results he saw. How do we reconcile all of this? And do you think this has done more damage to the confidence? Because Mr. Sawa talked about it. Do you think this has done more damage to the confidence of the voters, more harm than good?
I think if I'm given an assignment to do, and after thorough work I think I have done, all you do is to trash my effort, I bet you I won't do it again, even for free. Now, if a voter is made to think that his vote does not count, then he finds no reason to stand under the sun to vote for anybody at any time. That's dangerous for our democracy, because if the voters don't vote, people are not going to get elected. But that will lead me to the issue of, we talked about the issue of the Northeast and the issue of comparing the numbers and the numbers in states that are more comfortable and states that have had security issue. See, I had grappled with that discussion over the weekend, and I discovered that could it be possible that those who are sitting under the sun and are afraid of tomorrow were more committed than those who are living in luxury and comfort? I thought about it too. I said that could have accounted for it too, because a man who is living in his comfort will say, I have no reason to vote, after all we're doing well. And a man who is under the sun thinking of his tomorrow, not sure if he's going to live till tomorrow, thinks I need to change the dynamics, I need to change the decision that I'm going to be comfortable tomorrow. That's the way I think about it. That it is possible. That's accounted for it. Now I'll give a typical scenario. Somebody did a little experiment recently about 4 guys. They said they wanted to be sure that their votes would count or not. They had registered in a particular location. They went to that location, all 4 of them, where a particular party was obscure and unknown to that location. All 4 of them voted. They said they wanted to be sure that their vote was going to count. They waited, the results came out, and they discovered that their 4 votes were there. I think Nigerians should not lose hope that you did it yesterday and your candidate didn't win, because that's the possibility here. The possibility that because my candidate did not win, that meant my vote didn't count. I don't think so. When you go to vote, you are voting with an open heart. Convince yourself that you're choosing the right candidate and allow the system to decide it. If you do it once and it didn't work your way, do it again and again. My biggest problem was that most Nigerians still didn't know why they were voting. I'll tell you why. Some guys voted, and while I was doing this exercise, I asked them, which party did you vote? They were sincere enough to tell me. And they told me the result. And I said, who was contesting senatorial election for that office you voted? They didn't even know the name of the person.
Yeah,
they didn't even bother.
That happens a lot.
So that means they didn't even know why they were voting. And when I look at certain numbers that came from Katsina and Abuja, incongruity in this number made me understand people still didn't know why they were voting. Because as long as you come from this place, you don't govern that place. But where you govern should determine how you are performing. So this number should have been tallying, meaning, oh, he is doing well, oh, he's not doing well. You should see them in both ways. It means that people are voting for the wrong reason. And that's what INEC must do. Tell the people you're not just standing there to thumbprint for either president or this. You are standing there to decide the future of this country. You must look at the credibility and the credential of the individual you're voting.
Let's look at the numbers now. And I'm saying this from something you said earlier. a place that is, so to speak, a tourist attraction in comparison, with a place that has severe security challenges. And now when you look at void votes, cancelled votes, why do we seem to have more of them in certain parts of the country where you could say are relatively safe, no major security issues, but yet on election day there seem to be more issues in those places than in those other places where there's been severe security challenges over a number of years?
These are the questions that we must ask. These are the questions that we must demand answers to going forward. Now, the reason is, in this age of technology, where sitting here in this studio, I can have a conference meeting, a discussion with someone in Germany, someone in Garkida, my hometown, in Adamawa, and another person in Switzerland, in real time. And I can see these individuals as I see you. In this time, for the life of me, I cannot reconcile how it would take us, number one, so long to even process the information, and why we use such almost near primitive approaches. It is sad. It is sad. When you consider our banks, and you look at how our ATMs work, you compare our ATMs to even more advanced societies. You ask any banker, they will tell you that the level of security in Nigeria that's why you find less credit card fraud here than even in the States. Because of the level of checks, and security. So how do you reconcile this with it's simply for me, as far as I'm concerned, a lack of will. A lack of will. And this is where the problem comes beyond INEC. Beyond INEC. It's very convenient to shift the blame, but you can't squeeze blood out of a stone. And if you have a society that has resigned itself to ineffectuality in every sphere, that is comfortable with mediocrity, that in fact lauds weak performances and mediocrity over excellence. You have a society that shoots dreams. I'm talking about the Nigerian society now, across partisan lines. We need to rejig our society. We need to reappraise our value structure. We need to make those things that matter more. That's a simple issue. We're too comfortable with, and it's sad because you see there is a growing number of Nigerians who, number one, because of the ICT, that makes the world accessible to you, any and everywhere. You have a growing number of Nigerians who are aware, whose eyes are wide open. We go into the card reader issue. There is no reason, I feel, why we should have up to 5% card reader failure this time around, after the first experience. There is no reason whatsoever, If we're going to deploy technology, let's do it right. Let's do it right. And let's do it across board, Remember, credibility matters. Credibility matters, And it's really, really important that we do. And I can assure you that the average number, because if you look at the demographics, I tell you this, if you look at the demographics, you will find that areas where there's a higher level of education, you understand? You'll find amongst such voters, they vote less along simply regional or ethnic lines.
Religious.
Or religious lines. They're looking at the issues. They're looking at the issues. You understand?
Yes.
I remember telling my brother Eshua before coming in. I said, well, we are where we are. But like my people would say, so Samuni, if things were the way we would want them. I said, what would have been wrong in Onoshimbajo and Obi ticket?
A lot of now
what I'm doing here is I want to upset the
apple cart. Yeah, we'll get to that because during the debate, the vice presidential debate, which was on a lot of persons threw that argument up and said, in an ideal society, this should be the men running.
You have a legal expert. We're looking at rule of law. And you have someone, the business expert. I'm just looking at this. Yes. Why must region even factor in?
If you do a brief retrospect of events that led up to the 2019 national election, presidential and national assembly, was fraught with pre-electoral litigations, and that's a foretaste of what to expect post-elections. Across party lines, we had persons in all the parties, candidates, aspirants, they were called, in all the parties, big and small, even fledgling parties, were dagger drawn in litigation before the election, pre-electoral matters. So, the quantum of pre-electoral matters we have had, some of which is still pending. In fact, I turned the papers today and somebody was still asking to be declared, is it Supreme Court of Court Appeal, to declare him the presidential candidate of SDP. And I chuckled because that's very funny. Now, you see, for me, I expect that these particular elections will be very much litigated because we gave enough room to warrant that. I insist that if I have my way, I will put the INEC chairman on the hot seat. Why am I going to do that? He did not keep to the processes he released. He said that he would download card reader data and make it available, display, that's the word, during collation. That was never done. Severally, his attention was called to it and he dismissed it. And we are now eulogizing him, finding excuses, making up excuses for how well they have fared. Whereas the facts, the data on ground is in disagreement with such excuses, with such eulogies, the communes have started pouring on people. So for me, it remains the fact that we are not a people of systems and processes. We are yet to grow up to where our peers are playing. Today, the technology or the knowledge industry, which is knowledge age, knowledge economy, where the whole world is playing, is likely being driven by Indians. And I'm told, I was not there, that we got independence about same time with India. And I can tell you, Indians came to Nigeria to look for jobs. I met some of them who taught me in the university. I'm sure they are no longer here. We'll go there to go and take medication. Now, the point I need be made that until as a people, we begin to interrogate persons we have given what Hausa call amana, trust, on how well they have fared with it. And when they have not done well, they get reprimanded or punished. 2015 election, a few INEC staff were sentenced or were taken to court, let me put it that mildly, for allegedly collecting money. I have said our psyche is so manipulated and made to only see the person doing the bad thing as the person who are taking money. And the person who is destroying the system and destroying the society as having done nothing. We have therefore shifted our value to think that everything begins and ends with whether you take money or you don't take money. Bad as taking money or stealing may be, I tell you, it is an infinitesimal part of our problem. Honestly. You see, for me, the man that called from Kuje talked about solution. So, if you say 1 + 1 will be 2, and I now see you do 1 + 0 and you tell me it is 2, you expect my confidence to remain the same? Hope deferred makes the heart sick. So for me, I think that as a people, yes, the presidential and national assembly election is done, dusted, and result is being released. We are not through with it yet. We should interrogate the processes. We should interrogate people who were given responsibilities. We all saw it on television where a professor said, I am announcing this result under duress. Oh, you didn't see it, I saw.
No, it happened.
Beautiful. And then I said, please, if I am one of those who give professor, I'll take away his professorship from him. Because even if you were at gunpoint, you can only say you were under duress if you were in an obscure position, in a seclusion, if you are hounded out, not before microphones. All international televisions are before you, and you tell them you are under duress. If you tell them you're under duress, then you should say the right thing. He said he was under duress, and yet he did the bidding of the person who he claimed, alleged, put him under duress. People should be interrogated. Nigerian people should make people to pay. Okay. And the only way we can, hold on, somebody called from Moroso, and you asked him what does he want. We need to ask questions.
Okay.
If we are handed to a point where civil voice can no longer be heard, of dissenting voice can no longer be heard, then we have destroyed democracy.
Now, what I want to ask is this. One way or the other, when I say move forward, I mean, I'm not saying those who want to contest the outcome of the election should not, but obviously, I mean, we have to move forward, one way or the other. Now, in moving forward, what would you say Nigerians should expect from the president, politicians themselves, the political elite, the media, the civil society organizations, and in fact the international community? What do you think Nigerians should expect from them? Shortly after winning the election in 2015, there was a comment the president made, 97%, 5%. And from some of the messages I got earlier today when we did the newspaper review, a lot of persons, even those who are in support of him, have said, please, Mr. President, try and unite the country. But let me get your perspectives, gentlemen, on what you think Nigerians should expect going forward.
First and foremost, I don't think that anybody lost or anybody won this election. Mr. President was given another opportunity, and those whom we think lost the election only learned a lesson. So, bearing that in your mind, you have gotten 4 years. You know the hues and cries. If you think that you don't, then take it. God is giving you another opportunity to right the wrong of the past. And I think at this point, if I was the president, what he needs to do first and foremost, to look at the electoral system. I am happy. On the 15th or 14th of February, the president's speech said he acknowledged the fact that it was a free and fair election that brought him to office. And therefore, you must do everything to ensure that you get a freer and a fairer election as you're leaving office. What does he need to do? He needs to get all those who are elected in the Ninth Assembly and ensure that we expunge from our laws this article that expressly states that election shall not be done by any electronic system. We need to expunge it from that system and make our electoral system less human dependent. Let it be a system dependent affair.
Okay, let me get to Mr. Sawa right now. Earlier you made mention of the possibility of having two people we think are competent, irrespective of where they come from, irrespective of region, religion, whatever. And you gave the instance of Apit Obi and Yemi Osinbajo. Now, looking forward, projecting forward, what do you think? How do you think we need to address that issue?
The fact
so as we can have more people we feel, or that the people think are more competent to deliver, the dividends of democracy to them.
Now we need a meritocracy in that instance. We need a society that appreciates appreciates merit, over other considerations. That's simply the issue. I can assure you one thing. You hear a lot of cries over appointments skewed towards one section, right? If things were going the way
they should. I can assure you, many of these cries may not even be raised. People would not even notice. Nobody in Microsoft is questioning how much the management are being paid. It's not a big deal. Or where they're coming from. Or in Google, it's not a big deal. What they're simply concerned about is performance. Leadership is not by virtue of position. Leadership is by virtue of performance. And people know this. What I feel Nigerians can do, we should fall forward. You learn. Also, one excellent way to learn is by learning how not to do it. And we clearly have seen how not to do it. We must fall forward. Moving forward, we pull our all together, our resources together. Wherever, at whatever level we find each of ourselves, commit your part to this new Nigeria that we're looking towards. I congratulate Mr. President based on the results that have been given, and I would encourage anyone who has grievances to follow fully the constitutional avenues made available.
Okay,
and let's pray for a better.
Let's take
nation.
your messages. I don't know if we'll be able to take all of them, but let's try and see what we can do. Shomane had allegedly said late last year that the opposition should be ready to bear the pains of rigging. The number of invalid votes is quite alarming. Now that Baba is back, let him be more magnanimous in his appointment and accommodative of alleged enemies. We just talked about some of these things. PDP to sue APC, who will give them the justice. The new CJN, above all, the rain that fell during the coalition is a sign of peace. Let's embrace it. God help Nigeria. Pat Favor from Maraba sent that message in. I voted for the first time, but not impressed with the loss of lives and the result from the north. However, I wish Nigeria all the best. Amos from Garki sends that in. Kingsley Tochku says, I did not believe in 2019 election results. Good morning. This one says, I believe you on the... Okay, some people are just so plain rude. Some people are plain rude with the text messages they send. This one says, Delta and Rivers gave former President Jonathan over 1 million votes in 2015. Why didn't we have same this year? Let's stop pre-election and be real in our analysis. Suleiman from Papi sent that in. So that'll be our last message we'll take on the show this morning. So, Dr. Casmir, let's get your last words before we end.
My last word, do we give up on the country? No, we don't need to give up. What we expect, when the election was put off, I am still happy on what I insist, whether people disagree with me or not. The president said after the election we will find out why it was put off. I'm sure I'm not the only one who heard him.
Yes,
Please, I want the president to carry out that order. Why was he put off? Let him also be bold. Let him overreach himself to also do an inquest on the process that now have given him victory again. Now, what is important here? Two things that the major contenders run on. We must find a way to marry them. Do we need to go to next level? Yes, we need to go to next level. Do we need to make Nigeria work again?
Yes.
That is what we need most.